Also the same obviously applied to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to make people realize that, it's okay to be Black and to play tennis, and it's okay to be good at it and to be better. And that's kind of something I had to lean into myself, and realize that it wasn't me. It wasn't anything to do with me. It was just that I had to force people to see me.
Heated confrontation after a second-round match at the U.S. Open here in New York. After Jelena Ostapenko lost to Taylor Townsend, the two exchanging sharp words. Townsend saying Ostapenko accusing her of having no class and no education.
Serena Williams just called out Jelena Ostapenko. And if y'all are like, Jelena who? Then let me refresh your memory real quick. She's that Latvian player who snatched the French Open back in 2017. Loud, fiery, always throwing tantrums on court like she paid rent for the drama. And just last week at the US Open, she caught a quick 2-set beatdown from Atlanta's own Taylor Townsend. Now, baby, this wasn't just a regular loss. Taylor came out there swinging like she had rent due and a point to prove, and the New York crowd was eating it up. Every fist pump, every yell, every serve that clipped the line, the stadium turned into a block party. Ostapenko, sis was heated. She wasn't clapping it up or saying good game. Instead, she allegedly told Taylor she had no class, no education, and then dropped that slick little warning, we'll see what happens outside the US. Now pause. You call a Black woman uneducated in the middle of a sport that's been dragging Serena and Venus for decades with the same coded language? Yeah, that ain't just trash talk, that's a trigger. It hit different. The crowd knew it, Twitter knew it, the whole internet knew it. Screenshots and clips were flying before Ostapenko even packed her rackets. Taylor, she kept it cute in the interview. She said, look, people get mad when they lose. She said what she said, but I already beat her outside the US and here in New York too. So we'll see. That's a clap back with a smile. I said what I said, now let me go get a massage. But the story don't stop there, because right when folks were debating if this was racism, regular saltiness, or some combination of both, the queen of tennis herself allegedly decided to step into the chat. That's right, Serena Williams, the same woman who's been through boos at Indian Wells, bad calls at the US Open, and a whole career of coded insults, supposedly came through and dragged Ostapenko for filth. And that's the part that shook the room. Serena didn't even need to raise her voice. Her presence alone shifted the whole conversation. When she calls you out, it's not just beef, it's history speaking. It's decades of microaggressions, headlines, and side-eye condensed into one heavyweight clapback. Suddenly, this wasn't just about Taylor's win or Ostapenko's loss. It became about what those words mean in a sport that's tried and failed to silence Black women for generations. And sis, if you thought the match was fiery, wait until you see how the public is spinning this.
The heifer knew what she was saying. See, I know we try, well, she ain't from here. Nah. She questioned her intellect. You ain't got to. She questioned her intellect and class. Nah, the heifer knew what she was saying.
Now let's break down how everybody tried to sell this moment, because baby, what happens after the match is where the real game begins. Taylor Townsend was the first to set the tone. Reporters asked her what was said on court, and sis didn't sugarcoat it. She told them flat. Ostapenko called her classless, uneducated, and even threw out, wait till we get outside the US. But here's the twist. Taylor didn't blow up. She smiled, laughed it off, and reminded everyone she had already beat Ostapenko in Canada and in New York. That's a slick spin. Calm, collected, but still putting her foot down. She's basically saying, I don't need to cuss you out because my scoreboard already did it. Sponsors love that. Fans respect it. Then, out of nowhere, Naomi Osaka slides in. Now, Naomi's whole brand is soft-spoken honesty. She admitted it straight. That's one of the worst things you can say to a Black player in a mostly white sport. She even gave a little grace, saying maybe Ostapenko didn't know the history behind those words. That's Naomi being diplomatic. She'll call it wrong, but she's not going full scorched earth. That's her lane, and people expect it. But the moment everyone's still talking about Serena Williams allegedly stepping in, sis doesn't need to play nice anymore. She's not on tour. She's not fighting chair umpires. She's not begging for respect from commentators who never wanted her in the first place. She's retired, but when she speaks, it's like the final word. The public didn't see Serena tweeting. They saw the queen mother of tennis standing up for the new generation. And in gossip land, that's what we call a drag. Meanwhile, the media tried to water it down. Articles popped up calling it an altercation, like this this was two equal sides talking slick. But if you ask the streets, they're not buying it. Black Twitter said, don't gaslight us. We know the difference between being mad you lost and coming for a black woman's humanity. The crowd in Queens was already chanting for Taylor. You could hear it in the video. That energy carried online and drowned out every attempt to frame this as a cute little spat. So now the spin is lopsided. Taylor looks classy, Naomi looks thoughtful, Serena looks powerful, Ostapenko looks messy, and that's how you know the game shifted. Because once Serena co-signs, the whole world decides who's right and who's wrong. And trust me, this ain't the first time tennis has seen a queen flip the script. Let's pull some receipts because the history here is louder than the match itself.
I'll read to you the post since you mentioned it. This was by Ostapenko this afternoon. She said, "Hi all, I wanted to apologize for some of the things I said during my second round singles match. English is not my native language, so when I said education, I was speaking only about what I believe as tennis etiquette, but I understand how the words I used could have offended many people beyond the tennis court. I appreciate the support as I continue to learn and grow as a person and a tennis player. Goodbye, New York, and I look forward to being back next year." What are your thoughts about that message that Ostapenko posted publicly?
I like you. You a little messy. No, I'm kidding. That's nice that, she did that, that she apologized. That's fine. That's cool. At the end of the day, I think that it's a learning lesson for her.
But is it though? Because y'all should know that this moment ain't happening in a vacuum. To really catch why Serena's drag on Ostapenko feels so loud, you gotta look at the history, not just of these players, but of tennis itself. First, let's talk Jelena Ostapenko. We ain't gonna front like she's some quiet, polite princess of the court. Ever since she shocked the world and snatched that French Open title in 2017, she been known for fireworks, slamming rackets, barking at umpires, side-eyeing opponents. That's her brand. Folks call it fiery, but let's be honest, if Serena or Venus had carried on the same way, they'd be labeled angry or out of control. Double standard much? So when Ostapenko allegedly tossed that no class, no education shade, people didn't see it as a slip of the tongue. They saw a pattern. And Taylor Townsend? Sis has her own history with this sport. She's been told she wasn't fit enough, wasn't polished enough, wasn't the right type for tennis. The USTA even held back her support years ago, questioning her body instead of her game. She's been fighting coded disrespect from day one. So to hear another player, a white woman, allegedly throwing classless and uneducated in her face after she just dominated, that's like hitting a scar with a hammer. It stings because it fits the same tired script she's been battling for a decade. And then there's Serena's history, who, let's not forget, she knows this movie by heart. From Indian Wells, where she got booed as a teenager, to the 2009 US Open meltdown moment, to the endless headlines dissecting her body, her temper, her clothes. Serena's been painted as the villain in a sport that never wanted her to win. She fought through years of whispers about being too strong, too loud, too ghetto, all while stacking grand slams like sneakers in a closet. So when she sees Taylor catching the same coded language, that's personal. That's not just gossip, that's generational. And let me slide in the cultural layer. In tennis, calling a white player emotional is often spun as passionate. But call a black woman classless, that's a whole other weapon. A racist trope dressed up as etiquette critique. That's why Naomi said it was one of the worst things you can say to a black player. That's why the crowd reacted like they did. And that's why Serena's alleged drag mattered. She wasn't just clapping back for Taylor. She was dragging the entire history of how this sport talks down to black women. See, the receipts don't lie. Ostapenko's temper, Taylor's long fight for respect, Serena's legacy of being policed for her blackness, it all adds layers to what could have been dismissed as just words. And that's why this moment got stamped in ink, not just on the timeline, but in the culture's memory. See, here's the thing. Ostapenko versus Taylor ain't just a random spat on court 11. It's part of a pattern. Every era of sports got that one moment where a black athlete dominates and suddenly the language turns nasty. Folks start tossing around words like classless, angry, or uneducated, which is really just the polite way of saying something uglier without saying it. Remember Venus and Serena in the early 2000s? Whoo, child. Every time they stepped out, here came the commentary about their beads, their bodies, their attitude. Meanwhile, their white opponents could smash a racket to pieces and still get called passionate competitors. That's the same double standard people heard in Ostapenko's little outburst. worse. She's been known to argue with umpires and roll her eyes mid-match, and it gets brushed off as fire. Taylor celebrates her win, and suddenly she's classless. You see the math? It don't add up. And if you look outside tennis, the parallels hit just as hard. Tiger Woods walked into golf, a country club sport, overwhelmingly white, and the moment he dominated, the whispers about his background, his blackness, his family, all came rushing in. Simone Biles takes a break for mental health, and instead of empathy, she gets told she's weak. Different sports, same script. When a black athlete refuses to fit the box, the world scrambles to put them back in it. Now, let's play devil's advocate for a second. Some folks on the timeline were like, maybe Ostapenko didn't mean it like that. Maybe she was just mad she lost. Even Naomi Osaka leaned into that angle, saying maybe Jelena didn't know the cultural weight of those words here in America. That's fair. Not everybody grew up in the same history class. But sis, come on, no class, no education. That's not fresh shade. That's old. That's the same tired jab that's been used against black women in every arena, from the tennis court to the boardroom. You can't just wave that away as cultural confusion. And that's where Serena comes in like the final boss of the whole sport. She's been through this, she's eaten those same insults, and she survived to become the face of tennis anyway. So when she allegedly steps forward to call it out, it's not even just about defending Taylor, it's about saying, we're not doing this again. She dragged with authority, with legacy, with receipts. And it makes you wonder, is this about one woman's salty tongue, or is it about a sport that still can't handle a new generation of black women shining? Either way, sis, this ain't just tennis beef anymore. This is history replaying itself in real time. So after all the clips, all the think pieces, and all the aunties in the stands ready to ride, what happens now? That's the question, because moments like this don't just live in the shade blogs for a week. They stick to careers, to brands, to legacies. For Taylor Townsend, this might be a turning point. She's been overlooked for years, fighting through fat-shaming headlines, fighting through the doubt, fighting just to be funded properly by the very system that was supposed to nurture her. Now suddenly, the world sees her not just as the girl who pulled an upset, but as a black woman who handled a racist jab with grace and still stood tall. That changes how people view you. That can bring endorsements, coverage, maybe even that push into the spotlight she deserved from day one. But let's keep it real. It also brings pressure. Now everybody's watching her, not just to win, but to carry a bigger story than she ever signed up for. For Ostapenko, this one is dangerous. Yes, she's got that French Open trophy. Yes, she's had big moments on the court, but athletes don't always get to control which chapter defines them. And when the words you're remembered for sound like coded racism, no class, no education, that cloud follows you, especially in tennis, a sport with receipts. Folks still talk about Hingis shading the Williams sisters. Folks still bring up that chair smash McEnroe moment from the 80s. Imagine being remembered not for your win, but for what you allegedly said when you lost. And Serena, baby, her legacy was already set. She's the greatest to ever hold a racket, but this just cements her as the protector of the new guard. She didn't have to say a word. She could have stayed quiet in retirement, sipping wine in her mansion with Olympia, but no, she allegedly stepped in, made it clear, don't you dare drag another black woman with the same tired insults you threw at me for 20 years. That's power, that's sisterhood, that's a queen refusing to let history repeat itself without calling it out. So what's next? Either Ostapenko doubles down and leans into that villain role, or she tries to clean it up with apologies and PR. Taylor's got momentum now, Serena's still the silent giant behind her, and Naomi and the rest of the Black Girl squad are watching. The tours, the sponsors, the fans, they gotta decide where they stand.